So today I have a Hurley on order for a 28 inch. So a 28 inch would be classed as a junior Hurley. So I won't need any of the, like here you see the larger planks. And when I'm looking for plank selection, especially at an adult grade, you can see these are all A grade planks, which means they're top range. These cost me €12 to buy in. And what I'm really looking for is the grain. That's the butt of the ash tree that you can see here where it's actually going round. And then you can see the grain, it comes the whole way down from the handle and it'll actually curve around there. So depending on the make of Hurley, as in the style of Hurley, like this one here would have more of a curve on it. So depending if I need something that has more of a toe coming out this way, I'll look for a plank that's a little bit bigger and has more of a toe. So again, it just depends what I'm looking for. So as I say, the one I have today now is a 28 inch Hurley. So I'll just get a standard 28 inch template. So I'll set it down, the handle, because the grain is coming up the plank like this at a little bit of an angle, I'll keep my handle at a little bit of an angle as well just to follow it. I'll get my Hurley down, get it. Now you never really know what you're going to get until you mark it. So when I mark it now, I get a little look at it. When I get a wee look at it then, I'll know exactly how we're fixed. And I can see then when I take the template off, I've got what I want. Now there may be one or two small grain lines at the front that aren't going to follow up, but the majority of the grain lines, if I pick one here, the majority of my grain lines coming from the toe of the Hurley, the majority of my grain lines when I follow them come all the way up the handle of the Hurley. Alright, so as I'm coming up the Hurley, it's basically coming the entire length of the Hurley, that one grain line. So that will, if the Hurley does break or does crack, and if it cracks along the grain line, the Hurley normally stays together and you can re-glue it and then put a band across the front of it, and the band will help hold the whole lot together. See, this is still only within the first stage. So my second stage now is where I'm going to take the plank and I'm going to run it through the bandsaw to get the shape of it cut. And you can see from both sides of the plank that they'll be delighted with it, because again the grain pattern is going up through it. But again, this only takes us into place to get started. At the minute the plank is still roughly about 25mm thick, and as this is a 28 inch Hurley, it needs to finish up with an overall thickness at the bottom here of roughly about 16 to 17mm. So the next stage for me now is to remove a lot of the excess material here on the outside using the thicknessing machine over another corner here. I've taken the plank that was 25mm thick a couple of minutes ago and I've brought it down now to approximately 16 to 17mm, which is what we need for a junior Hurley to make it nice and light. Again, to touch the timber, at the minute I can feel the timber is actually quite cold, and with it quite cold it means that there is a bit of moisture in it. So before I start now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the moisture content reading in it and I'm going to see where it is. As I say, I want it to be somewhere in the region of about 16. As I say, it should be somewhere between, ideally, 14 to 16%. Anything, if it goes less than 14, you have to try and think about wetting it a little bit. So when I put the two spikes in and check it, at the minute, I can lock it. So when I lift it, so I can turn it to the camera, it's 14.7%. So that's just perfect. I have a couple of different stages involved now to actually start shaping the Hurley. So this is just the initial stages. Now I'm at the shaping stages for the Hurley. The first thing that I have to do is I have to get the boss of the Hurley. Now the Hurley itself, as we look at it at the minute, is rectangular in cross section, and the finished item, the finished Hurley itself, when we look closely at it, it has to be almost wedge shaped. So the bottom here, which is the heel, has to be thicker than the front of the toe. So this first stage I have to go to this is I have to try and thickness this down now to the toe. So how do I do that is I have to use a mixture of a power plane and a hand plane. Now again, with just experience over the years, I've found best ways to do it. So I've kind of got my own wee way of gripping the Hurley. So it smooths it down, and I now do the exact same on the opposite side. So I do the exact same now on the opposite side. 5 passes and then 4 passes, and then plane it down with the smoothing plane. So Once I have the boss shaped up, I'll still need a final sanding. Once I've got the boss shaped up, I now have to mark it for the initial stages for the handle, because the handle at the minute is completely square. I have to mark it now for cutting. In order to mark it for cutting, I need to give myself some guidelines, and in order to get the guidelines, I'm between just using my pencil. And again, this has come from practice over the years, knowing how much to do, that I can use the pencil and just put these guidelines on the actual hurl itself. So when I'm cutting with the bandsaw then, I've actually got lines to work to. Once I have the handle roughly shaped, so you can see where we went from the rectangle, and we've knocked off all the sharp corners to try and get more of a shape on it. Once we've got it down to this stage, we're then back to the hand processes again. So we're using a spoke shave. Spoke shave is traditionally what Hurley makers would have used when they didn't have bandsaws to do everything, but unluckily enough the bandsaw will speed me up an awful lot. So when I'm spoke shaving, the only thing I have to be careful of is the direction of the grain. Here you can see just as I'm finishing this stroke, it's starting to peel instead of breaking off. So what happens there is I have to now spoke shave up the way whenever I go to the other side. So now, again, give it a bit more strength. I just hold it in with my chest. And as I'm using the spoke shave, I won't stay in the one spot. You can see with my hands that I'm constantly just coming up and over. So using the spoke shave to actually round it. Just have to clear the throat of it every so often. But I'm just rounding it over and back. So now I have to just do the final bit here, and because of the difference in grain, I can't pull up the way. A lot of the time I have to start from here and go back in. So I use a hacksaw. I know it's from metal, but because of the very fine teeth in the blade, even to places there's no teeth in the blade, it doesn't cut too deep into this piece of wood on me, and it allows me to get a lovely smooth cut. And I just use a chisel, turned upside down, and again I turn the chisel upside down this way so that it doesn't actually dig into the piece. If I go this way, it will dig in, but by doing it this way, it stays on top of the wood and doesn't dig in. We're now ready for the final stages, which is the sanding. So, as this is another 28, sorry, this is 30 inch, see the difference in length, but basically a similar style of hurl. Here we're lovely and smooth. The whiter timber, all this means is that it was sanded and it's just slightly drier, whereas this here is slightly browner because it hasn't got the sanding yet. What I need to do in the sanding machine now is I need to smooth the handle, make sure there's no sharp edges, and I also have to add what's called the lift. And the lift is the part of the hurl that when we're putting it on the ground, that when you wedge it in underneath, it forces the ball to come back up. If we don't do that bit, it makes it really, really hard with the chunky edge, and it can actually push it out of the way. So, especially for a kid, this is a 28 inch hurl. For a kid, I like to make this nice and shallow so that they've got what I suppose they've started calling the super lift, which makes it even easier for them to get up. So my next stages now are the final two sanding machines, and then that is us. And then to finish the hurl, there's no point letting it go out the door without the stamp, because again, you want everyone to know who's made the Hurley, and the kids themselves a lot of time, they want to know as well. So when we get it stamped up then, we have our stamp and our name on it.